Hello, Fred.
Hello, John.
Good to see you, bud.
Yeah, it's good to see you too. It's good to be back here.
This is the site of one of the first Fred and John talks.
The first.
The first, absolutely. And we're going to have some fun today, as well as an interesting topic.
Very interesting topic.
It's about men and women YouTubers. Fancy that. Something about men and women. In the last few weeks...
Oh, wait. Before you
Yeah.
go on, I got a joke.
Yeah.
Groucho Marx.
Groucho Marx.
He said this to a woman, I am a man and you are a woman. I can't think of a better arrangement.
Well, I'll tell you, we've been about connections and relationships for a couple of years now. And those of you who follow us on YouTube, apart from some of the frivolous things we do like license plates, etc., we talk about connections and relationships and building strength between friendships and relationships.
That's our bottom line.
That's our bottom line. And interestingly enough, Fred, in some news reports recently, I have seen that there's an upbeat about men becoming more religiously engaged than women.
Really?
Yes. Young men at a higher rate than women are becoming more religiously inclined to find themselves and to find strength and to build themselves up.
Is that right?
Okay? And the topic that you're going to talk about today is on the other side of that picture. What
Yes.
are you going to tell us about today?
Well, today's episode was prompted by an article, The Atlantic. I've never read that magazine. The title is Americans Are Falling Out of Love with Relationships.
And we're all about relationships.
Yes!
We don't want this to happen.
Adults, I'm just going to read a little bit as an
All right.
intro.
Okay.
Adults are significantly less likely to be married or to live with a partner than they used to be, by Derek Thompson. The national marriage rate is hovering near its all-time low, while the share of women under 65 who aren't living with a partner has grown steadily since the 1980s. The past decade seems to be the only period since at least the 70s when women under 35 were more likely to live with their parents than with a spouse. But it's a long article. That's just a snippet.
Interesting that I brought up this new information about young men in their 20s and 30s discovering religion, discovering purpose, discovering their manhood and how to identify with themselves and to be in charge of their lives and maybe relationships with others, specifically with women, because hopefully the procreation of men and women will continue. Otherwise, we won't be on the planet.
There'll be nobody left.
And I would be out of business having been an OBGYN doctor.
And we wouldn't have anybody to watch our podcast.
Exactly. So tell me what you think about this in terms of relationships.
Oh, that's a dangerous question. You know, it's like be careful what you wish for. So I have some thoughts on this. I've outlined them in my notes. When I read this article, the first thing that came to my mind, John, was this is something that has been developing over decades. Notice how in the article they have a throwback to the 1980s and since the 70s.
Yes.
And I remember very clearly reading the results of research that was done on college campuses. So I'm going to cite two studies from the distant past. This goes back probably more than a decade, maybe two. But one study showed that there was an alarming increase in the rates of narcissism among college students, men and women.
I can't imagine that's improved.
Probably might have gotten worse. And in my counseling practice, I'm encountering it like it's a deluge.
Oh boy.
A person comes in and says, you know, my husband or my wife is a flaming narcissist. I've read up on it and, you know, it describes him or her. Another study that I remember, not only did I read about this, but I saw, it was either on television or on the computer, I can't remember, but there was a video. They were interviewing college women about relationships and sex, and a vast majority of them said in no uncertain terms, we are not interested in all the hard work of relationships and all the toxicity in relationships. We just want sex and what they now call a friend with benefits. We just want to enjoy the pleasures of sex.
So whenever I was younger, and when you were younger too, there was a phrase to be a playboy. There was Playboy magazine.
Yeah.
So now it looks like there's a transfer of interest and power to women that they want to be a playgirl. I don't know.
Is that part of the sexual revolution? I would think.
I would think it's part of the sexual revolution.
Women's liberation, and then you mentioned before we went on camera,
The Pound Me Too movement.
Me Too movement.
And the increase in divorce in the last few decades.
You
Almost 50%.
You read my mind. The divorce rate varies between 40 and 50%. Sadly, even among people reporting to be devout Christians. I myself am a devout Catholic Christian, and I'm divorced.
I'm a divorced male as well.
Yeah.
And it just shows you that maybe the examples of all this behavior going on with children watching has led to some of what you're talking about.
You're a smart man, John. You're very intuitive, because I can tell you that in my counseling practice and in my research that one of the reasons for this article in the Atlantic is people saying, I grew up in a highly dysfunctional family. My parents were at each other's throats constantly, and that was my model for marriage. And I felt from a young age, I don't want any part of this marriage thing. Yeah.
That's sad because there's so much to be gained from being in love with a woman and vice versa, a woman with a man. I mean, it's a beautiful thing apart from making babies.
Yes. And I will add on a personal note that it's been a joy for me as a friend who loves you so much to see you and Brenda, because you remarried.
Yes.
And to see the two of you, I describe you like, after how many years have you been married to Brenda?
24 years.
Even after 24 years, sometimes when I'm around you, you're still like lovebirds and newlyweds. And so you can rediscover love in, later life.
Brenda is the love of my life.
You heard it here.
On YouTube.
Yes, and I want to cite one more study. Actually, I saved the worst for last in terms of research. And I've heard this in the counseling room too, among my clients who are men, 20s, but even more so, 30s and 40s, who never married. Some still live with their parents, some are on their own, but it's about intimacy. In one study, well, there was more than one, but in the one that I read, a vast majority of the men, when they were asked about their intimate life, i.e. sexual life, they said that they would rather watch pornography and self-pleasure than be with a living, breathing woman partner. How sad is that?
I hope it's not the same segment of males who are discovering religion.
I hope not.
And who are trying to be more manly or find their manhood or their position in life.
Well, now that you went back to that, maybe we can end this short video on that positive note and say, if men are having a bit of a spiritual awakening, then that gives some hope that they will be mature, that they will have good values, and that they will seek out relationships with women that
And-
are commitment oriented.
Be responsible, be respectful. Yes,
Be good dads, be good
fathers.
husbands.
yes.
We need that. I feel, and I borrow this from Dr. James Dobson, whose ministry was called Focus on the Family, that we need a resurgence and a rebirth of positive marriages in America and perhaps worldwide.
Fred, some of the things I saw in my OBGYN practice over about 40 years is that women, I think, in many respects, like seeing strength in men. Many women recognize that there is a difference between the two sexes, one being a little stronger than the other. Men are generally stronger than women in terms of physical health and stature and strength. And I think they appreciate that and want that. And I think I've seen over the years that men appreciate women being feminine. Yes, being feminine, soft, and they look for that side of humanity that has a different role than they play themselves. So I think it should be an interaction between the two that's positive.
As Bible believing men, wasn't that the original design?
Correct. You hit the nail on the head, Fred.
I think that's a good end.
That's a wrap.
That's a wrap, buddy. Let's shake hands on that.
Hey, subscribe and watch us on YouTube, Fred and John Talks. We're having fun, hope you will too. And
Yes.
learn something at the same time.
Learn something. Thank you for watching. So you were saying something about men and finding, religion. Why don't you elaborate?
Yes, what I've seen, Fred, in men is they're gaining strength through finding faith and religion in their lives. And that kind of reminds me of the cross of Jesus, the cross of religion. The cross to me is where the main part of the cross,
The vertical.
the vertical, is the person and a higher spirit or their God. It doesn't have to be, it could be whatever faith you have.
Right.
Is outside of yourself. Something
Right.
stronger that you believe in that helps you.
And it's significant that you're pointing up because
Yes.
you think of the higher power as being up.
Very good. And so you have that arm of the cross, and then you have
The crossbar.
the crossbar.
And what does that indicate?
Horizontal means what you and I have been doing for several years now with our YouTube is connections, relationships, and developing the environment, the community of people.
Connections, whether that be between men and women, friendships among men, like we have our men's group and our prayer group. Yes, I love how you
It can
break
be
that down.
It can be your workplace. You have
Your
relationships
coworkers.
in your coworkers. It can be physicians in hospital helping each other, helping patients, and then you have the vertical.
Yeah. Well, I say to some of my clients, when my faith-based clients, I talk to them about their, how is your vertical relationship? I even use that phrase.
Oh, really?
Yeah. How's your relationship with God? Yeah. How's your prayer life?
How's your prayer life?
Stuff like that.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about too.
Yeah.
Very good.
Very good. Good job.